Showtime, people. Week 2, Season 6, Episode 2 of the Talkin TV podcast. We are back with the next of the perennial top 10 list that we do every January, and this week we are doing top 10 TV shows. It's been an interesting year in television, just the way that it was last year. But whereas last year was kind of the year that TV came back after COVID, this was the year where it just seemed like TV was over. We saw a lot of our favorite prestige TV shows air their final seasons this year. We also saw a couple new and interesting ones pop up, seeing this is kind of like a transition year, seeing what was going to come in and replace the old shows. I'm joined by two very old friends who've been on the podcast many, many times. Luke of Luke Reviews and Eli Holicky have both joined me in order to share their top 10 lists, their favorite shows from the year 2023. Gentlemen, are you ready to get this started?
Absolutely.
Yes, chef.
To give you a key as to what we're in for today. All of this and more on today's episode of the Talkin TV podcast. Stay tuned. All right, what's going on, everybody? Like I said, we're here to talk about the year of television in 2023. We're here to break down our top 10 lists, which, as I know, is something that we always love doing. But before we get started, I always like to start the episode off with this question, which is where we're at in terms of TV. 2023 was interesting because of everything that happened that year, because of the strikes, our first real year officially out of COVID, the way that 2022 really wasn't. It felt like in a way where TV really came to play in 2022 and in 2023 because things seemed to shift back towards the movies with all the massive blockbusters, with the way that people finally seem to be engaging with movies again in a way that they really hadn't the last 3 years. TV, I'm not going to say that it didn't have the same impact, but there definitely felt like there was a sense of change in the air, right? About every couple of years, we go through these cycles of whatever the big it show is at the moment, those kind of come to an end, and then you have a bunch of new shows come to take its place. But because the strikes happened this year, delayed a lot of the fall content that we would have normally gotten. A lot of shows got pushed to later on in the year. A lot of the shows got pushed into the next couple of years. A lot of shows got scrapped, Still no sign of Severance season 2. No clue when that's coming back. We got a couple of interesting new shows, a couple of returning shows that we hadn't gotten in a while. But as I was talking with both of you before this got started, this seemed to be the year where just TV ended, A lot of our favorite shows we've been keeping track of over the last couple of years. Like I said, Succession, Barry, Ted Lasso, Reservation Dogs, Sex Education, Physical. A lot of shows.
Attack on Titan.
That's the big one, right? After many, many years of speculation as to whether or not it was actually going to happen, Attack on Titan aired. Season 4, part 2, the final episode?
Part 3.
Part 3, they were 2-hour-long episodes.
That's right. Yeah, they basically aired it as a movie. So I wanted to get your guys...
Part 3B.
Right. So I wanted to get your guys' thoughts on that. What did you guys think of the year of 2023 when it came to television, how it compared to previous years? Eli, I'm going to start with you because, again, some of my fondest memories of us hanging out were always when we would sit there and we would watch Barry season 3 and The Boys season 3 and Better Call Saul's final season. And it just felt like we were in this moment of yes, TV is back. And where do you think we are now when it comes to TV?
I think there's a bit of a vacuum, if you will, in terms of what kind of shows could come in and kind of dominate pop culture. I could see, The Bear has really been around a lot of conversations that I've been seeing in terms of being that new phenomenal show that everyone's going to be, starting to talk about. The Boys is only getting more and more following each year, especially with Gen V this year. It was, I'd say, a pretty successful show. I think it's going to really help to elevate that. And then there's just some new shows that kind of are coming in, looking to stake their claim. I think that we'll see a lot in terms of maybe I feel like more streaming services might kind of just try and do more projects, see what throw at the wall and see what sticks, if you will. But I know that Max has been trying out a lot of new things and trying to at least try and compete with Netflix in terms of the amount of original shows they're putting out there. Same with Apple as well. I know they've been given a really good, or I should say playing a pretty good hand. I don't know. I'm not good with metaphors, but yeah, I'm really excited to see what's to come. I think that this is probably the best opportunity for struggling streaming services to really find their it show, to really see if they can compete with the big dogs.
Absolutely, and struggle they are, because if there's one thing that the strikes proved, that the streaming services can no longer rely on quantity. They have to go back to relying on quality. They need that it show, or they are not going to survive, as Disney will tell you. Luke, what are your thoughts on the year of 2023 in television? What is it about this year, your favorite shows this year, that really stood out to you?
Well, Dom, as the leading authority on TV shows in the year 2023, of which I have seen very little, because you sent me that list of like all the things that I'm guessing you have watched. I'm like, oh, that one, okay, skip like 5 down. Okay, I've seen that one. I'm still watching that one. But I tried this year to watch a little more stuff. Like I made one great discovery, which we will talk about later in the show. I'm not really a discovery, I just on my radar. I just finally watched it. Yeah, like you guys mentioned, the streaming war is as prevalent as ever. Some are still showing that they are significantly better than others, like your HBOs compared to your Disneys, who had Disney and Marvel were very up and down this year. We'll get to that, I'm sure.
Not a good year for them.
I expect the Disney Hulu merger by the end of 2025.
Oh, it's already happened. Hulu shows are already available to watch on Disney Plus.
Oh, are they actually?
Yes.
I meant like combine into one platform completely.
Oh, okay, yeah.
We have just Disney Plus. We don't have Hulu. I guess it's different regionally.
It's the Hulu add-on, the same way that Paramount Plus has the Showtime add-on now.
Yeah.
But yeah, like you guys said, like a bunch of things ended. So like we're in a new era of sorts. What's gonna be the next HBO show that everyone watches? Like I guess it's The Last of Us.
Last of Us and House of the Dragon.
House of the Dragon's coming back, of course.
White Lotus as well.
But yeah, Succession, Barry, and Ted Lasso all ended in like the same weekend.
Same week, yeah. I remember Eli was on for it.
It was right before the Emmy deadline too. So yeah, but I did venture into Apple as well this year, so they had some interesting things. And there's still a lot to get through. Especially they ventured with one big IP, like their first big IP that maybe to try and get some more audience in there. We'll talk about that, I'm sure. But I'm looking forward to the future of TV in this new landscape. What new things will pop up, because there's always something new, and then it kind of takes off. Like whatever Squid Game, that no one saw that coming, and it became the biggest thing ever. So
exactly.
We'll have to see.
It's going to be interesting to see where TV goes from here on out, especially considering that, like you said, it's changed a lot of form. Like the whole. We were talking a lot about this over the last couple of years, but the whole prestige era that kind of really got started with Breaking Bad, and then later the first couple seasons of Game of Thrones, that was continued with shows like True Detective and whatnot. That's kind of really come to an end, I would say. And now we really are in this phase of I would argue like blockbuster TV, because with what House of the Dragon did last year, with kind of what The Boys as a franchise almost has become with their spinoff now, and now obviously with, like you were talking about, Luke, the Apple TV Plus shows, just the money that they are putting into those shows. Like I would argue that most of those Apple TV Plus shows are more cinematic than some of the TV. Like, I'm sorry, you got an Apple TV Plus show that's got better CGI and effects than half the Marvel crap that we got this past year. Like, come on. That is absolutely insane. Before we get started, I just wanted to run through a couple of my honorable mentions that I had. I had The Last of Us. I have Dave season 3. I have Sex Education's final season. I have Loki season 2. I have The Fall of the House of Usher on Netflix, which is a show that did not make any of our lists, but was another excellent installment in the Mike Flanagan canon. Invincible, first half of season 2. Legend of Vox Machina season 2. Mine and Chris is one of our favorite shows. Physical and Ted Lasso's third and final seasons, both of which aired. The Continental, the John Wick 3-part prequel show on Peacock. Righteous Gemstones season 3 and The Bad Batch season 2. But those two were originally in my top 10 and just recently got knocked out by 2 other entries that I saw first. I'm going to get this started off. My number 10 is an entry that is one of the few entries that has made all 3 of our lists. I will say that right off the bat. And that is Gen V, The Boys spinoff, which is a show that I was skeptical about going in, to say the least, because I'm like, okay, we're already getting The Boys spinoff material. I didn't necessarily ask for this. I don't know if I wanted this. I didn't watch the animated Boys content when that came out, even though Dustin said that was very good. And I saw the premise is basically the boys, but in college. I'm like, okay. And it just shows that, like, I need to stop underestimating this creative team, because if there's one thing that Eric Kripke and Craig Rosenberg and all the other incredible creators on the show have done, it is that you never know what's going to come next. You never know what's going to. The end of the first episode alone, I was like, what the fuck? Like, I just, after everything, like, Eli, we also thought that the first episode of The Boys season 3 was crazy enough to begin with. And
Oh yeah,
added more twists, more turns than I could have possibly saw. Added another layer to the corruption that we all know that the show is already capable of. Introduced some new twists on some other familiar powers. Basically made bloodbending like a mainstream power now, which I didn't even think that was possible, but apparently you can do that. Again, a really good, interesting batch of new characters as you see. Basically, like I said, what is essentially the I'm trying to the Blue Mountain State Dawson's Creek, but with superheroes who like teen who are going through teen angst and also can't control their powers. Each one of these new characters was really interesting, really compelling. Went through a fully satisfied arc. Introduced us to some really interesting and good new actors as well. A lot of these actors, aside from the lead actors who I'd only seen in one really terrible Tyler Perry movie from like a couple of years ago, really impressed me. Also, fun fact: the girl who plays the shrinking girl is actually dating Robbie from Cobra Kai, which I thought was a little interesting tidbit right there. And like I said, it ended and set up for The Boys season 4 spectacularly, and I can't wait to see more of this. So yeah, my number 10, Gen V. Going over to Luke, what is your number 10?
My number 10, I'll just mention some honorable mentions first. Not so honorable mentions, more like they just about didn't make the list because I've only seen 13. Some of them aren't even full shows, so I'll just give a small shout out to Percy Jackson. It's about as good as the book was. It's nothing amazing. It's kind of like American Harry Potter, maybe a little cooler, but not written as well. But I'm excited to keep venturing into that. Half of Invincible. It wasn't good enough, that first half, to make the list. It was good, but it's only half. And The Mandalorian season 3, which is just like, what are we doing here? Yeah. What happened to the first 2 seasons? And now we're getting a movie, and I'm just like 3 years ago, I would have been so excited for that, but now it's like, great.
Yep.
I know I have a Grogu up there.
Yes, you do.
I enjoy his presence.
I have one too over on my bed. I also have some. I have some Grogu pajamas as well.
I have said this before. Unless it's animated, and unless Star Wars gets taken away from Disney, I am no longer looking forward to anything coming out from Star Wars.
Oh no, same.
And I'll believe that the movie is actually coming out when I have purchased the ticket.
Exactly.
Otherwise,
exactly. Yeah. I still don't believe they're going to make that Rey movie. Not for a second.
No.
All right, Luke. What's your number 10?
Number 10 is Ted Lasso season 3. Some episodes were really bad. I remember. I don't remember a whole lot of it because it was like way back in the spring. But it's still Ted Lasso. You're still gonna have great episodes. But this season did show that this is it. We can't really force much more out of it. It's a very corny show, but the corniness works in this case, and I think they ended it off really well. Seeing all the characters once again, and it didn't have that cliche ending of like, oh yes, they won the Premier League, which is like it's not realistic to do that as a football fan, not that football. Though this year I have become a fan, and I'm officially declaring myself a Texans fan, especially after yesterday.
That's like.
Oh no! Oh man! I was about to say, save that for the sports podcast that I'll eventually get on this feed when it becomes bigger.
We'll do that. But Ted Lasso season 3, it's a great Apple show that I'm sure will be at the top of their lists for years to come, no matter how long it will have been out.
Yeah,
I don't need a spin-off of anything from that show.
Yeah. I agree. They ended it the way that they wanted. Also, like I said, I'll say this about that season of Ted Lasso. Like I said, mediocre season, not the best effort that show has turned out, but wrapped it up the way that they wanted to. Went out on their own term, which I give them a lot of props and respect for. Eli, you're number 10.
Yeah, absolutely. I will quickly just say that I did have an honorable mentions list that I definitely not take as seriously as you guys. And there's only one thing on there, and it is MILF Manor. I just thought the sheer concept alone was ballsy enough to, warrant me talking about it. Because of the amount of backlash they got, and they still stuck with it.
They got backlash for what?
Oh, they got so much backlash.
They told everything that they said exactly what it was in the title.
It's like a reality show.
Yeah, it's a reality show. They get a bunch of like young, attractive men together, and it seems like it's gonna be a generic dating show, and then they pull back the curtain and it's all their moms. And so yeah, it's come
What a
on, like
a
nightmare.
show
that
that was made
concept
for us,
alone
Eli.
is so ballsy that I needed to mention it just because that's amazing in my
Oh my
opinion. And
God,
I hate
that's
reality TV. I really hate reality TV. I think most of it is just scripted, just sheer bullshit that is just so fabricated, and I don't know. I don't like it, but that segueing into my number 10 actually is a kind of a reality show, which is Jury Duty, which I thought was absolutely phenomenal. I just thought that was also a great concept, and I think that was reality TV done right, because I think they had actors in and around the one guy who didn't actually know that the whole thing was like a TV show, and I just thought it was like great. And the little like mini stories they had with all the little with each individual member of the jury in there was really kind of funny to see. And I just thought it was a great concept, and I really enjoyed watching it and seeing it progress through each episode.
Yeah, this is a show that I desperately wanted to check out. I think the first time I heard about this was when it got nominated for the Emmy for comedy over the summer. And I was like, "What the hell?" I don't think I'd heard of it. And then I looked into it and I'm like, "Wait, is this a reality show or is this a narrative show?" And I think the answer is that it's some sort of a mix between
It's
the two.
both. It's
And
both.
it kind of worked out like really well. And I'm like, okay, I didn't get a chance to watch it because I was too busy torturing myself watching The Idol over the summer. But yeah, this definitely seemed really, really interesting. And I do want to check it out at some point. Going on to my number 9, you have, I would say, the show that came in to replace Ted Lasso. This is the next of Bill Lawrence's shows that he's going to be doing for Apple TV Plus, and that is the first season of Shrinking, which stars Jason Segel as a therapist who is still getting over the death of his wife. This also is the show that famously brought Harrison Ford to the small screen as well, and shows that he is not missed a beat when it comes to acting. It's crazy to me that Harrison Ford was better in an Apple TV Plus show this year than he was in the 5th Indiana Jones movie, but that should tell you exactly where the state of movies versus TV is. And yeah, the show was everything that it promised. It was delightful, it was corny, it was heartfelt, it was endearing. It's everything that you loved about Ted Lasso, but brought into like a new format, which is a show about grief and moving on past it, but done in more of a charming manner. And that's also not to also give a shout out to the excellent supporting cast as well. Jessica Williams, who I thought was absolutely phenomenal. Bill Lawrence's wife, Krista Miller, is the next door neighbor. Lukita Maxwell as his daughter. And what's it called? Where is he? And Luke Tenney as Sean, who is a veteran suffering from PTSD, who Jason Segel's character let stay with him. Jason Segel shows that he has not missed a beat since How I Met Your Mother days, but he's gotten a little bit more mature. He's gotten a little bit, he's evolved a little bit since his How I Met Your Mother days. And you see a new side of him that both between this show and then also Winning Time, which unfortunately also met its unintended end this year as well. But you see a new side of Jason Segel that you really haven't seen before, that it really, really impresses me from an acting standpoint. It shows that he still does have a career past his goofy size. That's my number 9, Shrinking. Luke, going over to you. Your number 9.
My number 9 is Gen V. I was in a similar boat to you, Dom, in that I really love The Boys. You know how much I love The Boys.
Oh yeah.
But I was like, spin-off, do we really need it? What is it going to add? And surprisingly, I was very surprised that I really enjoyed it. It's like not quite to the same level as The Boys, of course, but it was a nice companion piece that even set up a bit of the 4th season, which feels like has been in production forever, but maybe because of the strikes as well. But we're finally getting that in June or something?
Probably June, yeah.
I just hope it's not like everyone memes that the seasons are the same over and over again, but like I enjoy it either way. But Gen V is great cast of characters, great actors, and I'm looking forward to season 2, which is not something I thought I would be saying after the first few trailers and such.
Excellent. Yeah. Yeah. So we're real quick. Who is your favorite character / power from this season?
Power.
There are a lot of cool powers that we saw on display here.
I think my favorite character was the main girl. I forget her name.
Marie.
Marie. Yeah. Powers. See, the Boys still does what The Boys does best, like the shrinking thing. She has to throw up a bunch before she's like to shrink down, just like making fun of the Marvel and whatnot. Favorite powers. I like that the guy who goes on fire, his clothes get burned every time, so he has to redress every time. Just
Yes.
little things like that.
Yeah, just like little practical bits. Like I love in season
Yeah.
3 when Huey was teleporting and it teleported off with his clothes. And I'm like, thank you. I'm like, thank you for explaining that. Just made it so happy. I also love the scene where she exploded the guy's dick. I thought that was quite entertaining.
Well, it's the boys.
As well. Of course, that's gonna happen.
And there's a
they're
big
not
penis in
afraid
the first
to
episode. So
yeah,
they're not afraid to shy away from the downsides of superpowers, and I love it. I think that's a big difference between them and Marvel.
Exactly. Like I'll never forget the scene of the first episode where the metal guys are trying to show up for the girl and he sends the thing and accidentally goes through the girl's throat. And I'm like, thank you. I'm like, thank you for showing us that these guys do not have control over their powers. It's always a thing that I love about this show. Eli, your number 9.
Yeah, so my number 9 was Reacher, season 2 on Amazon. I thought it was refreshing in that it's not just it was more than just a generic, solo guy takes down a bunch of bad guys kind of story. It had a lot more care put into it, and I just really appreciated it. And I thought it was, in terms of pure action, I thought it was very nice and just about what I needed after so many shows and movies that were just trying to go for pure spectacle and lacking in everything else.
Yeah, so and you would say that Alan Ritchson, who I thought gave one of the worst performances of the year in Fast X, was better in this than he was in that. Also, the fact that we finally have a 6'7" jacked Jack Reacher instead of 5'2" Tom Cruise.
Right. World of a difference.
Yeah, that definitely makes a big difference. Yeah, like I said, Amazon just been killing it with those action shows, for sure, to say the least. Going on to my number 8 is another Amazon show, and one that I tried to watch when it first came out. Could not get into it. Just didn't understand the hype about the show. But I had a couple friends from school that kept saying, they're like, Dom, you got to check this out. You got to check this out. And I don't know what made me do it, but I finally got back into it. And as soon as I finally gave the show a chance and kept watching it, I could not stop. And that is Daisy Jones and the Six. This is the Amazon show that came out back in March that was based off of the book that was loosely based on Fleetwood Mac. And what happened there, this follows a fictional band and kind of, after they broke up after their big worldwide tour, their only worldwide tour. And it basically follows a pseudo documentary that interviews the 6 of them and kind of details exactly, what happened, how they got together, all the trials and tribulations. It's kind of an unexpectedly good cast. You've got people like Riley Keough and Camilla Morone, who've kind of been coming up the last couple of years. Sam Claflin, who is probably best known as Finnick from the Hunger Games movies, actually gives a really good performance here. I think the thing that's about the show that is so interesting about the show is that it's not perfect. There's certainly got a lot of problems, especially with the ending, but it's kind of in the imperfections that I kind of found the joy of it. It was just so wistful and just all about just the enjoyment of the art form, which is something that I usually don't say too much, considering the fact that, it feels like that's something that keeps going away more and more so as time goes on. But first of all, I mean, just the music itself was incredible. And it wasn't just the music. It was kind of how they evolved and got to the music that I thought was really interesting. I thought I'm not going to go out of my way and say that this was like a new Almost Famous, because nothing can quite touch what Almost Famous was. That's one of my all-time favorite movies, but this definitely kind of brought back a lot of the elements that made that movie as good as it was. And also in terms of just finding joy through making stuff with other people, and kind of the residual sadness that comes from that when those things inevitably come to an end, when people are unable to are unable to put the work before their own personal beefs and biases. And you would think that would turn out to be something messy, but it actually turns out to be something really joyful. And even though this does have a sad ending, it still kind of leaves you hopeful in a way. And not at all anything that I was expecting to get from the show. I was expecting this to fully be just a cheesy, chick flick sort of a thing, and it wasn't. So I had to give it a spot. Daisy Jones and the Six. I really, really enjoyed this one. Luke, moving on to you. Your number 8.
My number 8, I didn't think this would be on here, but I have the second season of Loki. I don't know if it was the incredibly bad taste in my mouth from Secret Invasion. I lasted, maybe 2.5 episodes? And I thought, okay, screw it. I'm going to see the rest on Twitter anyway.
More than me.
And I did.
Yeah.
And it ended.
You were wiser than me. I unfortunately stuck through all the rest of that show and suffered as a result of it.
How do you screw up Secret Invasion? But anyway,
I couldn't make it through episode 1. I was
so
just
bad.
I can't do it.
Fair enough.
So bad.
I was tricking myself into thinking, this is okay.
Yeah, you're like, it's not that bad.
It's the first episode syndrome.
Yes.
But Loki too, I didn't watch it for the first 4 weeks. So I was like, okay, who cares? I'm done with Marvel, except for the movies. I'll watch the movies because it's easy 2 hours. But then everyone's saying, okay, it's actually really good. I'm like, okay, let's watch it. And then it was really good. Loki, this first season of Loki is one of the few Marvel Disney Plus shows that are good to serviceable. You got maybe some of WandaVision, but Loki was always my favorite. This second season was better in pretty much every way. I thought it's both. Does both as much for Loki as it did for like what I thought would be like a setup for Secret Wars and whatnot. That's up in the air right now, I guess. Yeah, it was like just like a really cool time travel-y kind of show, which I was hoping like the first season would be. That one was just more like, oh, what's the TVA? And like, I don't really care what the TVA is. Let Loki be like DB Cooper and all these other historical figures that we don't really know much about. But yeah, it ended off really well. The finale was really good. There's just a moment in the finale where he goes and learns all of physics, engineering, mechanics like centuries later. So I really enjoyed that. Ki Hu Kwan was a great addition, but I only hope that he doesn't suffer from Olivia Colman syndrome, where after she won an Oscar, she just seemed to be popping up everywhere. And it's like, okay, I'm kind of sick of your shtick. But he's going to be in a 87 North action movie, so that could be something. Anyway, Loki season 2, and that's over now. So what's the next Disney Plus show? Like Echo. I haven't watched Echo, but apparently it's not good.
I watched the fight with Daredevil from the first episode, and that was it. I have no desire to watch any of the rest of that. I've heard some people say it's good. I've heard some people say it sucks. I don't care. I don't have an interest in
I just know that everyone's rewatching Daredevil now, so I should probably do that for the first time.
So, dude, I haven't seen Daredevil since it first dropped. I'm very tempted to rewatch that. But no, yeah, what I'll say about Loki is that, yeah, like I said, the first season was good. It was serviceable. I didn't love it, but it was definitely the best of like, that batch of Marvel shows. Not that that's saying much, but this second season started off, I was enjoying it, and then the way that it evolved to that finale, just how it like actually ended in a really, really special way that I did not see coming. So I'll definitely give that props for that, even though it didn't make my list. Eli, you're number 8. Wrap it up. Like I said, one of the only shows that's on all 3 of our lists.
Yeah, we've already talked about it quite a bit, but it's Gen V. I love the boys. I love the world building that came out of this show. I didn't really think they could expand too much, but I think showing us like what would this all be like in college was a perfect way to kind of segue into something new or to bring in something more fresh for when they get back to season 4 of the boys. I thought some of the powers they showcased were really interesting, and just I really liked how nothing is perfect and just everything can just go to shit so quickly in the true boys fashion. And just, I feel like there's nothing more I can really elaborate on other than what you guys have said. So it was a great show. I liked it, and I'm excited to see where they take season 4.
Yes, absolutely. Could not agree more. All right, going into, I think we've talked about Gen V and the boys enough. Going into my number 7, Luke, this is one that is actually on both of our lists in this exact same spot, so I figure we can talk about it at the same time. This is, again, a late 2023 entry. I don't even remember when I first heard about the show, but as soon as I heard they were bringing Godzilla
it was a while
to the
ago.
TV,
It was a while ago,
but as soon as I heard they were bringing Godzilla to the TV, I'm like, oh, on Apple TV, I'm like, oh, I'm in. Monarch Legacy of Monsters, the show just wrapped up on Friday, gave us a great snapshot glimpse into what season 2 is going to be. Luke, I mean, after how amazing Godzilla -1 was, did you think that the American Godzillas were going to be able to make a comeback this hard, especially with how stupid that new one that's coming out in March looks?
Yeah, I think there's a great comparison that I saw on Twitter. Like, Godzilla fans are getting what Batman fans want, like multiple adaptations, but like various stages of what they are. Are they colorful or dark or whatever? I absolutely loved Godzilla -1. It's my number 3 movie of the year. Spoilers for my top 10 video. Ooh, that's coming. But yeah, when this first announced, I'm like, this isn't going to work. Like, how are you going to get monsters on TV?
Right. Not to mention the fact that it's basically the Agents of S.H.I.E.L.D. of the Godzilla verse. Like, I'm like, why do we care about this?
But then the first trailer came out and like, whoa, okay, they have a budget, a really big one.
Oh, yeah.
But I really enjoyed it. I wanted to be like, I think they titled it wrong, first of all.
I agree.
It should have been like Godzilla, the Monarch Archives or something.
Yes, exactly. Every time I try to explain this show to people, they're like, what? I'm like, yeah, I know. That's why I just call it the Godzilla show. They're like, but that's not what it's called. I'm like, I know, but just bear with me for a second. But I mean, you watch that first episode, and I mean, from the flashback giving us a different perspective on the first Godzilla movie to the ending of that first episode, which is like one of the craziest things I've ever seen. Like, kind of like a really good throwback to, like, I would say the Kong 05, the Peter Jackson movie. And then how it just keeps escalating in each new episode, adding more. The best way that I can describe this show is that it's basically Lost meets the X-Files with Godzilla kind of just always lurking in the background. And like we get introduced, but that's just like a foray. We get introduced to like a whole bunch of new creatures, a whole bunch of new monsters. Some of the creatures, some of the designs they have are absolutely insane. Like you said, Luke, the budget, man, they do not shirk on the budget. They truly did spare no expense because, oh my God, I mean, the Ion Dragon versus Godzilla attack in the finale alone might have been better than every single fight that we got in the movies, which is kind of insane when you think about that.
I think it's up there with like the Muto one in the first movie because like just the scale of it and how heavy they feel. But I think my only complaint is that I want to see like maybe some of the OG monsters. I don't know if there's a licensing issue with
it
that.
was absolutely a licensing issue because people were talking
is.
about that because they were comparing the Ion Dragon to one of the other. I think it was Gamera or something like that.
They need to get that sorted because I want to see those monsters with high budget CGI and whatnot.
Yes.
I really enjoyed the dual timeline thing. I love Kurt Russell. I love Wyatt Russell.
Yeah. I think we were talking about that too, which I thought was really cool. Where it's like, the whole gimmick of where it's like, that Wyatt had been like getting up there over the last couple of years. Finally had his big major breakthrough, I would say, with playing John Walker on Falcon and the Winter Soldier. Then he gets to play the younger version of his dad, Kurt Russell, which they were talking about that in an interview where it's like, I never envisioned that. He's like, I always thought that like we would play like in the same movie per se, but I didn't think that we would ever play like different versions of the same character, which he thought was interesting. And Kurt was even saying like, I'm actually impressed that they did that instead of just doing the whole having me play the younger version, but then CGing me to look younger, which I'm really glad they didn't do.
I just wouldn't think that the MonsterVerse. Okay, there's like 4 movies.
4 movies, yeah, that's
4 movies. Gonna be 5, I guess.
Yep.
And is this really that successful a franchise where we make a show? And I guess it is. People, I don't know. There's numbers on this one.
Definitely is a market for it.
Yes, for sure. And I would also venture to say that quality-wise, this might be the best thing they've done, only because I feel like even when it comes to the best of the movies, there's still problems, like, the boring ass Aaron Taylor Johnson in the Godzilla 2014 one, the fact that they can never seem to make the humans right, the fact that every time it's like, okay, we're just waiting 2 hours until the monster fights finally happen. And this is like the one instance where they finally got everything right. They had a really compelling batch of human characters. The central mystery and conflict with them was at the forefront. The monsters did not take center stage. They were like, and also they made the monsters fucking scary. I would say that like the movies have been a little bit guilty of making these things a little bit too friendly. With Kong learning how to talk through sign language and Godzilla acting as like Godzilla acting as more of a protector than an actual adversary. But I would say this show and all the new creatures that it added, with the Frostvark and oh my God, the bugs in the first episode, they made these monsters scary again, which I think is what this property has kind of been lacking, and I really, really appreciate this show for doing that. So,
and just to go back to what we're getting this year, when last time I saw that trailer in theaters, I think it was Aquaman. I'm like trying to enjoy it, like, okay, this looks good. But then there's the final shot of them running. It's like, the weight is gone. It doesn't feel anything anymore.
Exactly. It's like Godzilla's pain. Kong's got an infinity gauntlet. I'm like, this has literally become Marvel at this point. Like,
just tell me when season 2 is out.
Exactly.
Or the next Japanese movie is out.
Yes, exactly. Especially since they hinted at Kong in the next one. And I'm like, okay, so this one was the setup for Apex, and then the next one is going to be how they establish, so basically timeline wise, the modern day, this fits like right after the first Godzilla movie, but we cut to in 2017. And we know that Godzilla King of the Monsters is not until roughly 2019, 2020. So like we still got a little bit of time to fill in there. So I'm going to be really interested to see what they do.
Maybe then we'll get some of those monsters that we saw in 2019.
Exactly. Exactly. Well, because they did establish that they already had the Monarch outpost established at like all the different spots, but like I'm hoping that we'll see some of that. Like I said, we only got like brief glimpses of in King of the Monsters as well. Yeah. So that's our respective number 7s. Monarch, Legacy of Monsters. We just nerded out hard for a second there. Eli, your number 7.
Yeah, so my number 7 is The Last of Us from HBO Max, or Max now, and it's very interesting to me because I'm a huge fan of the game. Well, the first game, less so the second game, still good, but had a lot of problems. But this first season was adapting the first game, which I thought is like a masterpiece, like one of the best video games like of all time in terms of storytelling. So adapting it to a TV show I thought was going to be really cool, and they could have the pros of it being a TV show versus a movie is they really could draw it out like some points in the game and really take their time with it. And I thought they did a great job in a lot of aspects, and maybe were a little worse than the video game and a few others. I didn't necessarily like the Kansas City arc all that much when when they were hanging out with the two other guys that were kind of on the run. I didn't really like the direction they took that story versus the game. They kind of made it a little overcomplicated for what it was, and I thought the ending was pretty generic, just for that arc in particular. I thought they actually did a lot more world building for the show compared to the game, which I really, really enjoyed. And I thought they did do some things better. Some storylines were definitely better, and I thought the characterization of a few side characters that aren't in it for very long was more fleshed out. So overall, I put it maybe just a little below the game in terms of quality, but still a great show. I thought they did a phenomenal job with it in terms of an adaptation.
I'll say this for The Last of Us. It didn't make my list. My whole thing was, like I said, I'm not a fan of the game. I haven't played the game, and I'm sure that the game probably would be better. My whole thing with it is that just narratively, it wasn't anything that I really hadn't seen before. I say that it's like it's another zombie apocalypse mixed with more misery porn, and I wasn't a big fan of the actress who played Ellie. But I will say also, we got a couple of casting updates for season 2. We got Caitlin Deaver's officially been confirmed to be playing Abby, and you have Isabel Merced and another guy that also just recently got cast as some pretty big players as well. My number 6 is Barry. Now, this is probably going to shock people as far as how low I have it on the list and the fact that I have a couple of other shows above there, but I'll explain why. So I was watching Barry, right? And season 3, when that came back last year, was just like so or rather 2 years ago now. Wow, it's kind of crazy to think about. Was just so gangbusters and took such a hard left turn and got so much darker than I was possibly expecting. And that show was just 8 episodes of absolute perfection. Eli, I'll never forget us laughing our asses off at that 7-10 end episode. What just one of the absolute highlights, one of the best episodes of TV I've ever seen. And season 4 starts, and they're really good. They're going on like a good trajectory. You know, they're like, okay, Barry's in jail. Everybody else is kind of reacting to it, like kind of getting over it. They're like kind of can't grapple with the fact of it's like, oh no, this guy that we thought we knew is actually like this cold-blooded murderer. Like the show is doing what it essentially promised, which is like finally holding its characters accountable for its actions. And we get 4 episodes of just absolute gloriousness. The second episode or the third episode when Barry evades the assassin that's sent to that's sent to take him out. One of the simultaneous most violent and funniest scenes I've ever seen with Fred Armisen, and after he blows his hand off, it's just so stupid. We get all the shit that we love from Barry. You know, we get some great moments from Hank. We get some great moments. Gene accidentally shooting his son, which is one of the funniest things I've seen. But then we have to do the time jump. And I have a thing about time jumps in the middle of a show, especially when it's such a short amount of time and with how much they had to wrap up. I would say that it kind of restricted them and only allowed them to do the best they could with the last 4, as opposed to just making it the absolute best, in the sense of where he's got a kid out of nowhere and you have an entire episode where you have no idea whether it's actually a dream or not. And I know that he did that by design, but there was just something about the last 4 episodes that just didn't feel as special and interesting. It still wrapped up in probably the best way that it could have, and it still was a phenomenal season of television. It's on my list. But those are just a couple things that just kind of held this back from being like as good as season 3 was. Just again, a couple of other spectacular acting moments. Anthony Carrigan as NoHo Hank, just an absolute revelation of a character. I don't know when we're going to get another character just as quite as uniquely funny, but also tragic as he was when he was unfortunately forced to say goodbye to the love of his life, Cristobal, in one of the most absolutely heartbreaking and brilliantly filmed death scenes I've seen this entire year. And again, just Barry's story ended in the way that really, at that point, Bill Hader was kind of directing. Like I said, he took the show in a drastically different turn after House Season 2, when turned down the comedy a lot, amped up the drama a lot more. Really, like I said, wanted to show just like what a despicable character Barry was, and I'd say that he nailed it. And also provided a very, very interesting commentary just on media in general with those with that last montage as well. So Barry, another show that we had to say goodbye to, another show that was like the little engine that could. It was my number 1 of last year, and it is my number 6 of this year. Luke, your number 6.
Oh, it's me.
Yes.
My number 6 is the latest season of my discovery of last year. It's For All Mankind, the 4th season. Right off the bat, I do think it might be the weakest season, but I think it's still a very good season. I wasn't entirely feeling the first half, but as it went on, I was like, okay, yeah, this is the show that I've binged over the last 2-3 weeks or so. And then the second half, they throw in the new thing that the season is going to be about, and that creates a whole lot of various conflicts and such. You know, I really love sci-fi. I love this period of history. I guess they're past that period of history of the Cold War, but it's kind of still happening because the Soviet Union's still around in that timeline. And I'm just looking forward to where this show keeps going. They really nailed the finale. I think it's the second best finale after the season 2 finale. No, I don't think they're gonna beat that one. They just had everything. What's his name? Joel Kinnaman. He's getting even older.
Yeah.
It's very, very funny. Will he make it to the next season? That is.
Who knows? They keep keeping him around. They keep with all the characters they've dropped on this show. They keep keeping him around. He's like going to be the last one standing at this point after what happened in the finale of this past season.
Yeah, the consequences after what happened in the finale have me very intrigued, and they're almost caught up to the modern day now.
Yeah, they could what they kind of had to 2012 at the end of this
2012.
season. They
so
keep doing the decade
season
hopping,
6. They should be around here.
Yeah,
somewhere.
exactly. Yeah, if they follow through, if they do the 7 seasons that they had planned from the beginning, they should be by like in the 2020s by the time they wrap this. So.
Yes, I will be with the show to the end. I absolutely love it. I love the characters, love the space stuff, and it can balance that stuff really well. So I'm not longing for the space stuff as much when it's just character stuff. And you got Toby Kebbell in there, which he didn't do as much as I thought he would. It's like being like the second name in the credits or something, but we'll see what happens with him.
Yeah, finally getting given actual performance and not a motion capture performance, which is nice. Eli, well, I just want to say real quick about For All Mankind. Like I said, this is definitely the weakest season yet, but like I said, it's one of those things that I see happen when you have like a long-running show where they're bringing in new characters to shuffle out the old guys, which is this was what I call a reset season. So even though this wasn't my favorite, especially compared to the last two, I can tell that they're setting up for like some gangbusters next couple of seasons if they get the season 5 renewal, which No, they did not. Slow Horses did, but I can't imagine why they would because the show has just been constantly chugging along. Now, Eli, your number 6.
Yeah, so my number 6 is the final episode. I mean, technically TV, I think, is the final.
It still counts as an episode, even though they shot it like a movie.
Yeah.
Yes.
Which I want to preface, I am not an anime guy. I've just tried to get into it with a couple shows, just never could do it. But this show really, the story of this show really transcended the genre, in my opinion. And I think anime is probably the best format for it. I don't really think it could do anything other than anime for it, but it was just, man, it's incredible. The whole show from start to finish there's not a single scene that doesn't have any significance. Just there could be a random conversation that happened in season 1. It's like, okay, kind of random. And then it like has significance like towards the end of season 3. And it's just like mind blowing. And the twists and turns are just absolutely phenomenal. And the ending is just like this really bittersweet, just like, just, oh my gosh, it was absolutely incredible. And I really like the message that it sent when it did end. And, it's just kind of, that's life, and, it's kind of up to your own interpretation of how well things went for people, which I really like. So.
Yes, and unlike One Piece, it actually ended. So
right, exactly.
There you go.
Apparently that's ending soon.
Believe it when I see it. It's the same thing with George R. Martin finishing those goddamn books. Believe it when I see it.
Don't even get me started.
We'll be here all day. Trust me.
He's signed on for like 5 new producing roles at Max.
Again, let Sleeping Dogs lie. Let's let Sleeping Dogs lie. My number 5, another show that ended like a show. It's another little show that could kind of popped up. Out of nowhere, like in the wake of COVID, had like a decent run and then ended. That's Reservation Dogs. This is a show that, again, I was like, okay, this is basically like a coming of age show set on a Native American reservation. I'm like, is this a comedy? Is this a tragedy? Like, what is this? And the answer is it's both. It doesn't harp on, the injustices that are committed against Native peoples like Killers of the Flower Moon. It's much more so low key. And I would say a stoner comedy. But what's interesting about this show and kind of what made this show so special is how it was about it was ultimately just telling a very human story that really had nothing to do with the fact that they were Native American, which is you have these 4 friends that are simultaneously kind of trying to keep their friendship going as they're getting older and as they're starting to age out, but while also, trying to respectively get over the tragedy of their very close friend who has committed suicide right before the start of the show. And basically the way that you kind of see them grow and evolve together. And then the season 2 last year ended with them finally getting out to California and being able to fulfill a vision and a dream that their departed friend had. And so going into this 3rd season, they had announced that this was going to be the last season. And of course that made me sad because I'd grown to really love these characters. I'd grown to really enjoy it. It's what I like to call a hangout show, which is a show that we really don't get that often anymore. And so going into this 3rd season, I was like, so what exactly are they going to do? The main trajectory of the show is ended. And again, fuck me, I guess. guess, because they completely surprised me in terms of how they were able to just wrap it up beautifully by essentially tying in the struggles and journeys of these four characters, that being Bear, Alora, Willie, Jack, and Cheese, into kind of the into kind of some of the older community as well. And kind of, we saw a lot of flashbacks to some of the characters when they were younger, and essentially showing how this is like this tale of friendship is generational, where you see that, like, you see the older characters and they're all sitting together, having been reunited after a significant amount of time apart, and they kind of see the younger guys and they're like, yeah, it's you guys now, you guys are the next one, and as these characters all kind of separate and go their separate ways, they kind of are able to reforge it, like, yeah, they're kind of always going to be together. It sounds corny as fuck, but the way that they do it and the way that Sterling Harjo was able to wrap this story up in such a beautiful way, like, it really, really hit home for me in a way that I wasn't expecting. I tied this show last year with Slow Horses, because again, that's just how gangbusters of a year it was for TV last year. But yeah, this show, it really, really something special, and it deserves to be up there in the conversation with the other shows that ended. And I heavily, heavily recommend it to anybody who hasn't gotten a chance to watch it. Like I said, it's a nice, quick, easy binge, only 28 episodes. And yeah, Reservation Dogs. Like, here's to the next one. Gonna miss that show. Luke, you're number 5.
All right, number 5. I was late to the party on this one, but I always arrive in time for cake. It is Barry season 4. Yeah, like you mentioned, it was a very drastic change from what the first 3 seasons were, but I enjoyed the drastic change personally. Bill Hader directed every episode, and you could, like, this is Bill Hader. Like, no, he's completely unique. He brings something new that we haven't seen before, and when he gets those movies made, I will be there day one, most anticipated of the year, whatever. But yeah, I thought it was a really nice cap off to the rest of the show. Like you said, dark, and like in that episode, I didn't know if it was a dream or not. Like I had to rewatch it. Like, is this real?
Yeah.
I figured, okay, that wasn't real. Next episode, boom, it was. So it was like
I guess it's the fact that they said they said the next, it was like a 10-year jump or something like that, because like he had a kid that was like not a little kid. Well, I'm not a little kid, and I was just like thrown off. I'm like, what? It threw me for a loop.
Yeah, the supporting cast was on fire, and just the way it ended, I thought it was very funny, very, very fitting. Just like, oh,
yeah,
and there you go. So
wow.
Maybe I need to rewatch it, just the whole show, to get like a really solid opinion on it. But I really enjoyed the 4th season. Maybe because I was binging it, just trying to.
Yeah, it is a very bingeable show too.
So I need to give it another watch. But it was a very good show, so I will definitely be rewatching it, I'm sure. Number 5 on the list.
Yes. Now, Eli, so you have one for your number 5 that, again, a lot of people have been yelling at me to watch. I plan on watching it. This kind of, again, we've been, in the wake of Arcane, when that came out in 2021, we kind of been waiting for the next badass Netflix show. So, Eli, you're number 5. Would you say that it has done it?
Oh, I think... And I don't think it quite compares to Arcane, but I think it is still phenomenal. And I think that, I mean, it was a beautiful show. My number 5 is Blue Eye Samurai, which I was not expecting much when I watched it. But I was very pleasantly surprised at like how kind of complex it turned out to be. And it was just, I mean, it was a pretty wild ride. I mean, and it was just gorgeous. I think best looking show of the year, in my opinion, like easily. Just, it was absolutely beautiful. Like almost every single scene just had some kind of incredible vision. I mean, I'm no animation expert, but I can only imagine how long some of the frames must have taken. It was incredible, man. I really enjoyed it.
Yeah, this is one that I've been meaning to watch, and I do plan on watching it at some point for sure. It was tough trying to catch up on some of the shows. Like, there were still like, I think this year has one of like my longest list of shows that I have yet to watch. My number 4, Slow Horses. I think this show has worked its way up to become my favorite Apple TV Plus show in the wake of Ted Lasso ending, and us having to wait 2 years for Severance, and Monarch and Shrinking just started this year. Because this show is like arguably, like, in a way, sort of become one of Apple's flagship shows. It started off as like, kind of this like little spy show that Gary Oldman was in, and has now kind of evolved to have like this massive reputation where essentially you have like the fuck up losers of MI5 that they can't really get rid of, so they kind of shuffle off to this like off the premises like shitty office, and they're all run by Gary Oldman's Jackson Lamb, who just makes it his life's mission to just belittle them and make them feel absolutely miserable about themselves, but they keep finding themselves stuck in situations where MI5 fucks up and they have to end up cleaning up because it could have far greater reaching implications to the world and such. And I would say that this season 3, was probably their best season yet. It ended in a 2-episode action shootout that is one of the best action shootouts that I've ever seen in anything, as secrets were revealed, characters were shifted and all that. And I absolutely loved it. Gary Oldman is still great. Jack Lowden as River Cartwright is still great. Kristen Scott Thomas, the entire cast of the Slower House as they were trying to make their way, get past the slight tragedy. And again, just the fact that it's at the end of the day, it's as good and as cinematic as it is, it's still TV and it still sets you up. It's for the next season in a great way. It's based off of a really, really good book series written by Mick Herron. Mick Jagger does the opening theme song. It's one of the only shows that I stick through the theme song fully every time. Chris and I started this last year when it first dropped, when it was one of the only shows to have dropped 2 seasons in 1 year. The first season was April of last year. The second season was December of last year. And I am more than excited for what they're going to do with the next couple of seasons. So my number 5, Slow Horses. So guys, I'm just going to quickly use the bathroom, but Luke, you continue with your number 4.
Yeah, I think me and Eli can talk about this a little bit. The Last of Us.
Yeah,
I have not played the game yet. I only got PlayStation last year. Actually finished Uncharted 4 today, so I think The Last of Us might be my next Naughty Dog adventure. Yeah, I haven't played the game. I pretty much knew most of it, but still the show added a plenty for me. It's just nice to have another prestige HBO show, I guess. But I think the not playing of the game really clouds some of those errors that you mentioned that you maybe weren't so fond of. But also there were lots of additions that people liked. So I love zombie stuff. I love Pedro Pascal. I love dark stuff, and just the memes of everyone crying after every episode every week as everyone's dying. I thought it was really well made. Just HBO showing why they are HBO and why they are considered the absolute best of the best.
One thing I did think the show did a great job with was they were able to make you care about the side characters more than the game did, I think. And that was a pretty big plus in my opinion. But yeah, personally, I know some people have said I forget the girl who played Ellie.
Bella Ramsey is her name.
Yeah,
Bella
Ramsey. I knew her name. It just escaped me in the moment. I personally think she's about as close to Ellie as you can get compared to the games. She doesn't quite have the look, but in terms of her voice and like her actions and everything, I think she was pretty spot on. I personally did not have a problem with the casting at all. In fact, I thought Pedro Pascal was less Joel than Bella Ramsey was less Ellie. So
you mean the most overcast man in Hollywood right now?
yeah. I mean,
he's having his Linsanity run.
Oh my god! And now he's gonna be the latest person to get ruined by Marvel, and I'm like, oh, awesome.
Yeah, I mean he's getting that fat stack though, so you can't really blame the man. So.
And he barely has to do anything for the Mandalorian.
Exactly.
He literally just gets in the booth once a year.
Exactly. He even basically admitted, he's like, yeah, I wasn't on set for Mandalorian season 3 at all. Like, at all. And I think that makes the
wild.
most sense. Yeah. All right. So, Eli, you're number 4.
Yeah, so a bit of a hot take with this one, mainly because I haven't seen as many shows as you guys, but I also am just excited for what's to come. I put Invincible just because I really, really enjoyed the first season. I've never read the comics, so I'm not really sure what to expect. Some people have a problem with like the kind of the gap they're leaving between both parts of the season. I don't personally. I'm pretty satisfied from what they gave us in that first half. I thought that it was more of what we came to love. I love how they're constantly bringing back like seemingly small elements or like some random villain from like season 1 that doesn't matter, and they give them more of like a bigger role, and they seem to use up everything they showcase so far, and I'm very excited to see. I feel like they're ramping up the stakes constantly with how they set up this new season, and I think that there's a lot of potential in terms of conflict. Not that there isn't already conflict. I think there's actually a lot of conflict between every plot line, and it's like that constant pressure on Mark and how he's going to handle everything, and can he save everyone, or like, what's going to happen. And I think that's pretty great in my opinion. So
no, absolutely. Yeah. And like I said, the only reason why I'm with you, I love the first half of the season. The only reason why I didn't have it on the list is, like I said, it's incomplete. It's only half the season. It's only half the story. And even though they like the where they left it off at the end of that 4th episode, I'm like, wow, like there's a lot of different places where this could go. But yeah, no, I'm like, yeah, it's only half the season. The story's not finished. So that's the only reason why. And I also I don't understand the reasoning as to why they didn't just release all 8 episodes at once. But I'm assuming it's because they probably wanted there to be less of a gap between seasons 2 and 3, the way there was between seasons 1 and 2. And this was their best way of compromising. Yeah, my number 3. This is one that, again, I was surprised you guys didn't get to, but I understand why. My number 3 is probably the best miniseries that I saw this year. This show came and had its massive moment. It is winning a ton of Golden Globes. It will win a ton of Emmys tomorrow night. That's the reason why we're doing top 10 TV shows today, because the Emmys tomorrow night, that is Beef on Netflix. This is a show that is created by Jake Schreier, who is currently tapped to direct Thunderbolts. It was interesting because this is a show where, again, just based off the premise alone, I was like, I don't really know where this is going, but I'm interested. It was directed by, it's produced by A24 as well, in another collaboration with them with Netflix, where essentially what happens where a road rage incident that involves 2 different people of 2 different social classes that kind of spirals out of control. And I'm like, I don't exactly know where that could go, but this is just one of those instances where you have the initial episode with the road rage incident, right? But like I said, you have Steven Yeun and Ali Wong as our 2 main characters. First of all, I didn't even know that Ali Wong could give a stand-up comedian could give a dramatic performance this excellent. Steven Yeun, I knew he'd been acting for quite a while now, between movies like Burning and the Bong Joon-ho movie that he was in, and then Minari, which he got an Oscar nomination for a couple of years ago. It's come a long way since The Walking Dead. And this is just an example of what happens with 2 very, very damaged people, very emotionally damaged people, and really just 2 just fucked up people like that do not do a lot of good things, and kind of how the consequences of their actions kind of come back to haunt them. And just as, like, again, it just the twists and the levels that it just keeps going to over and over again. Every time they try to resolve it, every time they try to squash their beef, pun intended, it just something else comes in to just further escalate it as you get to know more and more about each of these respective characters, the world, the different people that are involved in their lives. And it just keeps going and going and going until it goes to that explosive conclusion and climax. This is one of the biggest surprises for me of the year. This is one of the most interesting and engaging watches that I saw of the year. Like how the show goes from like, her hooking up with one of his relatives to like them breaking into her house to them tripping out on mushrooms in the desert. Like the show goes in all different possible ways that I didn't even think it could possible to go to. Like
it was just 2 people arguing.
Oh, no. Oh, if that was just that, this show would not be as successful as it was. Like I said, for everybody who has not seen this show, watch the show. You will not be dissatisfied. It's going to win the Best Miniseries Emmy. Steven Yeun and Ali Wong is definitely winning Best Actress. I hope that Steven Yeun wins over Evan Peters because, like I said, it's just this show was really something special. I think was if we're looking for in terms of like what new TV shows from 2023 have to offer, I think this show is the prime example for it. So my number 3, Beef.
that's next on my list.
Yes. All right. Now, Luke, Eli already talked about it, so bring us home.
Yeah. But I want to mention about Beef. I may not have seen the show, but around the time it released, I had a dream that I bought Beef branded frozen lasagna. It like had the poster on the lasagna. I was like, oh, that looks good.
That's weird. It was already, the algorithm has already found a way to seep its way into your your subconscious. That's crazy.
But anyway, my number 3 is Attack on Titan part 4.3 A and B. I was late to the party on this one. I had tried to start it like 3 or 4 times, but then I just never got there. I said, okay, it's finally ending, supposedly. I'm gonna get to it, and I never looked back. It's probably the greatest show ever, and the ending was absolutely everything. I had no idea how they were gonna end. I haven't read the manga or anything, so I knew it was gonna be controversial. Lots of people weren't gonna like it. I, for one, thought it was really good. The action was great. There was a really funny moment in it involving an okapi. I'm sure Eli remembers that moment. It was emotional. It was sad, but it wrapped up everything perfectly. It's like if it was the whole season 4, then it'd be number 1. But it's only the last 2 episodes, but they were really good episodes. That's why it's so high up here. And yeah, I'm thinking I'm gonna have to watch more anime after this one. But they say that if you watch this, it's all downhill from
Yeah,
here.
so I've heard.
In my
So I've heard.
experience, it is.
Yeah, although I have heard good things about the anime Death Note. I have heard very good things about that.
That will have to be on the list then.
Yeah, so we shall see. So now, like I said, so the next couple of entries we have pretty much in common. So the only thing that I will say is, so Eli, like I said, the only difference is that your number 2 is different from our number 2. But since you have the bear at number 3, I'm going to let you lead off that conversation, and then Luke and I will take it from there since we both have that at our number 2s, and then you'll do Barry, and then we'll all do number 1. So Eli, so you finally got to watch it. So what was it about the bear that just grabbed you?
I mean, I liked the initial mystery set up in the very first episode, because I basically watched season 1 and season 2 back to back. I really liked. I could tell the show trusted the audience, in which they didn't have to like just explain everything right off the bat, and there were like little subtle cues, like setting up little mysteries, like just that were interesting. You know, okay, well, I mean, this guy, his brother killed himself or something. Like, what's going on? Oh, he's inherited a restaurant. Oh, he, he's getting a lot of shit from all these people. He's not doing a great job. And okay, I mean, there's, why doesn't he just let it go? He has an opportunity to, kind of put it all behind him. There's a lot of significance, and it's just really interesting. And I really like just, I don't know, the editing and like a lot of those cooking scenes is like really great. The writing is like a lot better than I would expect it just for a show about just like a struggling restaurant, and it was really interesting. I mean, when I heard Bob Odenkirk was going to be in season 2, I was like, all right, just take my money. And even though, I mean, he's not like a huge part of the show, but nevertheless, I thought that the show is really great, and I don't know. Arguably, I'd like to make the argument that season 2 might be better than season 1.
That's not a question. Season 2 is better than season 1.
I don't know. I know a few people that thought season 1 was better, but personally, I think
it's nominated for the Emmys this year.
Yes,
somehow.
Yes.
It's only the first season.
Well, that's the thing. It's only the first season, right? Because of the Emmy cutoff, because of how that works. But they knew what they were doing when they dropped. But they knew what they were doing when they dropped season 2. When they did, yeah. Like I said, man. I mean, I remember because I was still living up in Oswego. I watched the first season. I thought it was good. I thought it was solid. I'm like, okay, this is good. This is interesting. I like where this is going. I don't love it. It hasn't gripped me yet. But if this goes where I think it could go, then I'm going to be really interested. And and it's one of the first instances where it did exactly what I wanted it to and nailed it, because season 2, man, I mean, between the Forks episode, when you get like, it was already one thing having Bernthal back as the brother and Oliver Platt, and like I said, and I knew that was going to be the episode that Bob Odenkirk was in, but and just all these people come up. I'm like, wait, Jamie Lee Curtis is the mom, like Mulaney? I'm like, Sarah Paul? I'm like, what? Like all these people that just come in over on top of the already incredible cast that we had. Jeremy Allen White, Evan Moss Backrack as Richie, which is probably, I think, the breakout performance of the year. Like, he's been acting for a while, but between that and then also popping up for his brief bit that he had on Andor this year, I still remember seeing him in shows like Girls and the Punisher back in the day.
And he was in No Hard Feelings.
And he was in No Hard Feelings as well. Like, 123 was kind of the...
That's where I recognize him.
Yeah, exactly. And also, another guy that's going to be fantastic for us, he is basically all but not confirmed to be playing The Thing, which I'm like, that is excellent casting right there if that pans out. And I mean, it's funny, because as good as that Forks episode was, though, and as incredible as that was, and I can't believe I'm saying this, but I think it's kind of funny that in the year that we also had the Taylor Swift Eras Tour, which every white girl on the planet was going nuts for, my mom included, that love story by Taylor Swift ended up being one of the best bits of any TV show that I saw this year in the Forks episode, in the Forks episode. Sorry, I'm talking about the Fishes episode, because, man, I mean, if I didn't already love Richie enough as it was, that just made me root for him like so much harder. And that's also not to take away from the rest of the excellence that the show did. They finally got the restaurant open. They finally were able to honor Michael's late wish. But Carmi has just gone down this self-destructive path that I don't know if he's just going to be able to come back from. And it's setting up for what could be a really, really interesting season 3. Also, like I said, even though Io Edebiri has become way, way too overexposed in the year of 2023, the fact
everywhere.
Yeah, she literally is everywhere. But I will say that her performance as Sydney was really interesting. Again, just the solo one-off episodes. Marcus in Amsterdam. I mean, come on, Will Poulter showing up. Olivia Colman showing up out of Copenhagen. Sorry, you're right. I kept thinking. I don't know why I kept thinking Amsterdam, Copenhagen. Man, I mean, even the minor characters like Tina and Ibra, when they went to cooking school, and Ibra dealing with like his insecurities about like whether he's going to be able to cut it in like a high dining establishment versus what he's used to and all that. Man, just like the little subtleties that this show was able to pull off. Yeah, again, giving the sister so much more. I mean, the Seven Fishes episode, you know what it was that hit so hard for me is that I'm like, I've lived that shit. I've literally lived that. So like the stress that comes from that, and it's like always just, growing up Italian, there's just something about it where it's like whoever's doing the cooking, it's like, you don't talk to them. You don't ask. There's that one thing that you just do not talk about. And this family, and just showing just like how dysfunctional they are. This show really, really brought dysfunctional families a new form of dysfunctional family, I would should say, that we haven't seen before. And man, I'm like, this is one of the quickest binges I've been to this entire show in 2 days in a way that I just was not expecting. So Luke, bring it home. You also watched The Bear. It is your number 2. What is it about this show that is so special and could be like the new It show going forward?
I think it just has everything. If you want a high anxiety cooking show where the editing is absolutely crazy, if you want like this character study of this guy who was affected by this tragedy and where that sends him, or you want a wholesome show about a guy learning to make desserts in Copenhagen, or you want the family drama episode, or you want to sing Taylor Swift while driving in your car. Like this show has everything, and it does everything to the highest level. Like you said, that whole Forks episode is just pure joy to watch, and I could watch that over and over again. I don't know how they're going to top this in season 3, but I know I'll be there day one. I use cousin in my daily vocabulary everywhere.
As you said, yes, chef.
Just to address people. So it's just a very fun show. So you got the Punisher throwing forks at Saul Goodman. Like, what else do you want?
Yeah, that's it. That's the thing. You had a Bertel Evan reunion because you had the Punisher and his guy in the chair, both in that episode.
I have not seen the Punisher. I just know that he is the Punisher, so yes. I'll have to.
Well, I'm saying Richie, Evan Moss Backrack is in the Punisher as well. So.
Oh, then I have to watch the Punisher.
Yeah, now you have to. Now you have to. It's the first time they work together. Yeah,
Okay.
It's great. The Bear's great. I can't wait to see where they go from season 3 onward. Like I said, I don't know if we're gonna get the Bear season 3 this year or next year, but I know that like that's they shoot these shows fast. Like I think they shot like the first season in like 3 months, not even, and they had it ready to go like 2 months later, which is absolutely insane, the turnover rate for this show. So yeah, excellent season. One of the defining moments of the year. I absolutely cannot wait to see where they go with season 3. Now, Eli, break down your number 2 before we all go over our respective number 1s, but I don't think it's going to be any surprise as to what our number 1 show of the year is going to be. It's pretty much what everyone has decreed is the show of the year. But Eli, your number 2.
Yeah, my number 2 is Barry. Absolutely love the show. I really thought I thought this was tied for the best season with season 3. I honestly really liked the ending. I was initially worried with the time jump and just how were they going to wrap up like so much in like, just a few episodes. And I think they did it phenomenally. I love the message they sent. I loved how kind of meta it was with the Barry Berkman movie at the end. Just, I just thought the message was really, really interesting that, yeah, we are probably glorifying some people through like film and TV that were like really evil people, and I think what I also really like is that our core like 5 characters, Barry, Sally, Kuzenow, NoHo Hank, and who else am I thinking? Fuchs they all kind of made peace with their past, but they weren't really forgiven for their actions, which I absolutely love. And I think that's the most appropriate ending for what the show was trying to do. And just, it was phenomenal. Very shocking, lots of twists and turns. I think NoHo Hank is probably one of my favorite characters in like any TV show ever. So that's, it was just phenomenal in every way.
Yeah. No, I personally still think that just like a bit from that episode was funny, was just how like over the top evil they made the Kusuno in the Barry movie in the finale.
Oh, yeah.
It was one of the things that was just like, because they had Jim Cummings in that part, which I thought was hilarious as Barry, but then the guy who they got as Kusuno was just so over the top evil that it's like, I just thought that was funny. Now, our number 1 of the year. Again, it comes as absolutely no surprises. I feel like the minute that they announced that this was going to be the last season, and I think they only announced it, like I keep getting my timelines a little mixed up, but I think it was like
not long.
It was when they put up like the 2nd or 3rd trailer was when it's like, yeah, this is it. And going into this, it's like there was a lot of anticipation riding on this, especially with how that 3rd season wrapped and everything. And you're like, okay, going in. Our number 1 across the board is Succession. It's the best show of the year easily. It's going to win the Emmy for drama. It's already won all the Golden Globes. And I mean, so Eli, we had you on for the finale. You and I respectively bonded over how good this show was. I feel like a lot of people bonded over how good this show was. The show kind of rose up in the ranks after the final season of Game of Thrones. It kind of took the spot as the new HBO must-watch show. I mean, the finale. I mean, it lived up to all of our hopes and dreams and excitements and more, right?
Oh, for sure, easily.
Yeah, it was just. I mean, like knowing where the conflict was going to be. I mean, I feel like the biggest thing going into this season, right, was it was going to be like, it was a matter of, okay, Logan's gonna die this season. It was just not a matter of, it was not a matter of if, it was a matter of when. And when they did it as early on as they did it, and kind of how that set the tone for the rest of the season, right? Because what was so interesting about the show the first 3 seasons is that the show the first 3 seasons, it was always like this push-pull back and forth of like, who's going to depose Logan, who's going to depose Logan, who's going to depose Logan. And so I guess what was so interesting going into the season is the writers recognizing their self-awareness of like, okay, if this is going to be the last season, we have to change things up. We can't have it be. So the fact that like you pretty much had the siblings first, like finally saying like, okay, fuck this. We're not going to try and overpose our dad. We can't beat him. He's too untouchable. And then finally seeing it, like finally being able to pull their efforts together and finally being able to do what none of them individually have been able to do, which is finally take out their dad.
Yep.
And then he dies. And they're like, oh, fuck. And then just a house of cards they built.
Well, now I don't want it.
Crumbling down. I mean,
Yep.
Luke, I mean, talk about it, man. Like this, every episode after Logan's death, it just kept escalating, getting crazier and crazier and back and forth. It's like, oh, Shiv's with them. Oh, Shiv's against them. Oh, Roman wants Mencken. Oh, what's Kendall going to do? Like, oh, it was just, talk about it.
Yeah, I think I watched the show sometime last year. I just watched through all of it. It was on my list for a while. But then I rewatched everything before season 4. And it's like, oh, it's the last one. What the hell am I going to do now? I only just got here. Like, and then the season started like, okay, yeah, this is a solid start. They're going to buy Pierce. The Pierces are still waiting for their 10 billion or whatever.
Yeah, right. That 10 billion that they're probably never going to get now.
And then episode 2, it was something, I think it was like the karaoke bit at the end.
Yeah, the karaoke bit.
And then episode 3, I'm sitting there. I had the Monday off. I remember I was sitting there like, oh, it's happening now.
Yeah.
Is this the one?
Exact same reaction that I had.
Like,
I was like,
okay, maybe,
oh shit, they're doing it. They're doing it now.
Maybe episode 8 or 9, but it's happening now. And then it turned out to be one of the best TV episodes ever. Just pure acting and writing. And then
just
the whole
anxiety throughout. I thought it was going to be another one of those shows that gave you a heart attack.
And then they released a new trailer because they had been selling it as like Logan's gonna live through the season, and then it's changed to completely something else. And then every episode, the stakes just kept getting bigger and bigger until the finale, which I don't know if I've ever seen a show nail a finale as much as this one had. I still have the bad Game of Thrones taste in my mouth, but this one's like everything is so perfect. I had that Monday off too. Coincidentally, I woke up. I was like, "Oh my god, someone is CEO." I don't know who CEO is. I gotta open up the episode and then deliver. Just every episode felt like an event. But like the show isn't even that popular, I think. Like compared to like a Last of Us.
Right. It's funny that you mentioned that, right? Because what was so interesting about it is the fact that this show like really was the last of its kind in the sense of like that prestige HBO show, because you're right. I feel like if you talk to like, it doesn't hit like the niche audience like Last of Us, like Invincible, like The Boys, like all these other properties are. But I think that's kind of what makes it so special, because in terms of it being like the last of like the must-watch water cooler shows, this is really it. Because you're right. Like in terms of like how profitable it was for HBO and Max, it wasn't, say, as like some of their other bigger blockbuster shows, but just again, the fact that it was the fact that it was the last of the shows where it just felt like everyone and their mother was talking about it. Because it's like people who I didn't even think would be interested in it loved the show. It was a show I could talk to my grandparents about. It was a show I could talk to you guys about. It was a show I could talk to like that. It was just such an easy show that I could recommend to people. And like, I feel like that's the thing. It was like the last of the monoculture shows, as I call it. And that's kind of why it has that spot. And I mean, it's going to win all the Emmys. You know, like I said, Jeremy Strong was the revelation breakout hit from this show, him finally becoming the superstar that he is. But really, the whole cast, Brian Cox, him finally being recognized now as Brian Cox and not just the character actor that's been in a million things, you know. Matthew McFadden as Tom, Kieran Culkin, now arguably being more popular than his brother now as Roman, Sarah Snook as Shiv, Alan Ruck, you know, finally getting back into the mainstream after almost 40 years being known as Cameron, now as Connor, Nicholas Braun as Greg, you know, and then even bringing back Skarsgård, finally bringing back Skarsgård to HBO as Lucas Matson. I mean, just every single character that this show brought is an absolute icon. The score, I would argue the last of the iconic HBO scores that they made so famous throughout their years. Eli, I know we talked about this like 7 to 8 months ago on the podcast when we first did it, but what is one thing that you're going to take away from this show, like, and will always remember from it? And don't say more on the floor.
it's like it's like Shakespearean almost, and just how its approach and its ending, and just I think one thing that's so amazing about this show, or that one thing that makes it so like entertaining, like I think Game of Thrones did this as well. It's just like it's a show about all these characters that could backstab each other at any given time, like, and you just never know, like they can flip on a dime and just like ruin someone completely. And it's so interesting when you have kind of a premise like that, I think. And I don't know, my biggest takeaway from the show, I mean, it's just writing was incredible. I think it's like at the end of the day, like none of them could really change, and I just think that man, I think the crazy part is they're all living considerably better lives than what we are, like 99.9% of people will ever live on this planet, and they're still like these miserable just pricks, and it feels like their whole world comes crashing down, especially Kendall. And I just really, it was very poetic, I think, the ending. And no one really wins, kind of thing, but I think when done right, those are the best kind of endings.
Yeah, I agree with that more so. Like I said, as I've said it more time and time again, it is both simultaneously the funniest show and the darkest show on TV.
Right.
And like I said, it was one last hats off, hoorah, goodbye to Succession. Like I said, the show that captured all of our hearts and minds. Now, guys, I know I said at the beginning of this episode that I wasn't going to do a combined list, but I think that between the shows that we have in common between the three of us and the shows that like at least two of us have on, I think we have enough. I think we have enough to do
for top five.
No, for a 10. I think we have enough to do a 10 for a combined list. Yeah, because we have all three of us. We have Succession, we have Barry, we have The Bear, and we have Gen V. So we have those four. You two as well. You have Attack on Titan, and Luke, you and I have Monarch, so that's 6. And then you two also have Last of Us, so that's 7. So we only need 3, and we could have a combined list. So let's see.
If you guys are missing your Jesse Armstrong fix, there's a movie that he was a writer on called Four Lions. I would recommend that.
I've heard about that. I have heard about that. Yeah.
Very funny.
All right, so if you guys are good with it, so Succession obviously is all of our number ones. You guys good with putting The Bear at 2 and then Barry at 3?
Works for me.
Yeah.
All right. And then what else do we have? So we have The Last of Us. We've got Gen V. We've got Monarch. Legacy of Monsters. And we have Attack on Titan. Yes. And then for the last spot, I'm going to make a big motion to put Beef on there, even though that was only on my list, because that one was just absolutely spectacular. And then you
sold it very well.
Oh, thank you. Thank you very much.
Man. And I had the lasagna dream, so I think that should count for something.
Yeah, honorable mention, Eli. Doesn't count. So what do we have left? So Luke, you have For All Mankind, Loki, and Ted Lasso. Eli, you have Blue-Eyed Samurai, Invincible, Reacher, and Jury Duty. I have Slow Horses, Reservation Dogs, Daisy Jones and the Six, and Shrinking. So what are we thinking for those last 2 spots?
I don't know, man. Blue-Eyed Samurai was pretty incredible.
A lot of people have been talking about it.
Yeah, a lot of people. You know what? You're right. So let's try to do one entry from each of our lists. So if I'll put on Beef, Eli will give you Blue-Eyed Samurai, and then Luke will give you the last choice, something that was only on your list and none of ours.
I have For All Mankind.
You're going to do For All Mankind?
Yeah.
Got it.
Get old-ass Joel Kinnaman.
Old-ass Joel Kinnaman. All right, so look at the combined list over here. We good with that order?
Where is it?
Right under banners and then combined list.
I don't see the banners.
Oh, that's right. I only have access to it. So,
you're the host.
I know. I keep forgetting.
Stick it in the private chat.
I know. So, basically, it's For All Mankind, Blue-Eyed Samurai, Beef, Attack on Titan, Monarch, Gen V, Last of Us, Barry, The Bear, Succession.
Yeah, that sounds
cool.
Pretty good to me.
Yeah.
All right, people. So, with that being said, our combined top 10 favorite TV shows of 2023. Number 10, For All Mankind, Season 4 on Apple TV+. Number 9, Blue-Eyed Samurai on Netflix. Number 8, Beef on Netflix. Number 7, Attack on Titan, the final season on whatever anime streaming service there is, which I don't keep track of. Number 6, Monarch, Legacy of Monsters on Apple TV. Number 5, Gen V on Amazon. Number 4, The Last of Us on HBO. Number 3, Barry, final season on HBO. Number 2, The Bear, season 2 on FX. And number 1, Succession, the final season on HBO. Gentlemen, thank you so much for joining me on yet another excellent episode of the Talkin TV podcast. Luke, starting with you, where can the good people follow you on the interwebs?
This month is my one active month of the year. You can follow me at Look Reviews on YouTube. The top 10 video is being written, so I'm having a lot of fun with that. So you can find me there, or on Instagram, also Look Reviews.
Absolutely. And Eli, about to make your debut on another podcast. If you want to just give that a shout out as well as where the good people can follow you on the interwebs.
Well, it's not confirmed yet, so maybe next time I'll leave the shameless plug. But as of right now, I still only have that Instagram and not that YouTube. I've been saying I was going to get around to making. But if you do want to, give me a follow, shoot me a DM. My Instagram handle is E_Holicky, like it's spelled on the screen, 45. It's E_Holicky 45. Just shoot me a DM. Love talking about movies, TV, storytelling in general. I read a bunch of books if you guys like that. So I'm a nerd. So
yes,
yeah.
Absolutely. That you are. It's why we have you on. It's why we love you. And of course, follow me with everything going on at Movie Nerd Reviews across all platforms, at Official Talkin TV Podcast across all platforms. This episode will be available on YouTube and Twitch after this. Be sure it will also be available on Spotify and Apple Podcasts tomorrow. And as well as stay tuned for more things coming from the channel. Big things we have planned this year, especially involving one Luke Reviews and a certain show that is hitting its 20-year anniversary later.
I don't regret committing to it yet.
Oh, no. Yes, definitely not. Definitely not. But it's going to be a lot of episodes. Just fair warning there. And as always, people, for myself, Luke and Eli, 12 seasons in a short film, and watch more fucking movies. We'll see you guys next time.